Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for Mentor School's 6th Annual Coleman Spring Zonneville Military Commitment Ceremony. We will begin today with the singing of our national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and remove your hats as VFW Post 9295 and the American Legion Post 350 Combined Color Guard present the flags.
Present, march.
Please remain standing while we do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Forward, march. Parade route.
Thank you. I would now like to invite local youth pastor Steve Sindelar to the stage for a brief prayer.
Let's pray. Our Father, thank you so much for all that you've given to us. You've given us incredible freedoms, an incredible country, and incredible young people to carry on what you've given to us. Thank you so much for their parents, for this community, for this school system, instilling in them love, courage, and a deep commitment of sacrifice. And Father, this morning, I pray that you would keep each one safe and protect them spiritually and physically as they go about the mission that you're calling them to. Lord, keep them safe, we pray, in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Sindelar. Good morning. I'm Bill Porter, Superintendent of Mentor Schools. It is truly a privilege to have the opportunity to honor 10 Mentor High School seniors who've decided to put service before self, with plans to enter our United States military after graduation. As you know, the commitment these students are making to serve their country is a tremendous one that deserves recognition. The 10 students who sit in front of you today are, if they could please stand at their seats when I call your name: Philip Aumann, Cassandra Hyatt, Kiernan Jakubka, Marcus Kowalski, Kira McMinn, Michael Merriman, Marco Monoretto, Dominic Neebe, Tristan Pastor, and Jacob Shivitz. Thank you. Please be seated. A commitment like the one these students are making doesn't just affect just themselves. I know they wouldn't be here today without the support of their families. I am thankful you're all here for us to share in the start of their military careers as part of our Mentor School's commitment ceremony tradition. I would like to ask at this time, because this is a commitment as well for the parents, for all the parents of these students to please stand and be recognized. To today's honorees, through the recruiting process, you have shown military representatives that you have what it takes to become a great serviceman or servicewoman. Whether signing for the Army or the Navy or Marines, active duty, National Guard, or ROTC, there's a lot of hard work ahead. Your commitment today is a sign of your courage and dedication, both honorable traits that will carry you far. From the Board of Education, myself, and all of us here at Mentor Schools, we are proud of you and cannot thank you enough for your decision to serve our country. I wish you great success in the future. At this time, I would like to invite American Legion Post 352 past Commander Doug Coleman, World War II veteran Mr. Bob Zonneville to the podium to share a few words of wisdom with our students today.
Special good morning to all of our proud young people here who have volunteered to serve in the military. Shortly, you will become part of a very large group of people who have served our country, veterans. Too often when we speak of veterans, they ask whether you served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, or one of them other many places. Too often we forget that those that serve at other times are just as important. Because of the military and our armed forces, many countries do not want to take us on because of the threats of retaliation. In fact, since World War II, every war we've been in, whether it was, I'm not saying it was right or wrong, that's not my decision. We were not attacked first. It's been proven by the fact that people like you served your country. As an old World War II veteran, I can tell you the importance of it. In 1940, our armed forces wasn't strong enough to put down a good riot. As a result, we invited such countries as Japan and Germany, and Italy jumped in then too because they thought we'd be such a soft touch. And if it had not been for our allies giving us the time to arm, I don't know what would have happened to us. We probably would have been speaking German and Japanese tonight. It's because of people like you that are serving us today that will not happen again. I can't say enough about your sacrifices and so forth. There will be times that you will not enjoy it. It's like at home. There's times at school you wasn't always happy. But the people there that are instructing you are trying to make sure that you come back. So I urge you to do your best. Many years ago, I made a comment a few times at veterans things. I'd like to make it today. Great occasions do not make heroes or cowards. They simply unveil them in the eyes of men. Silently and imperceptibly, as we wake or sleep, we grow strong or weak. And then some crisis shows us what we have become. Thank you very much for coming into the service.
I want to commend each of you for stepping forward and deciding that this country is worthy to be served. You're in the less than 1% of individuals in this country step forward and make the decision to serve. Years ago, I made that decision to serve. I believed our country was worthy of my service, and you're doing the same. You're about to step off into a career of possibly a career, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years. But during those years, you'll be challenged, both physically, mentally, spiritually. The challenges you face initially will be guided by NCOs above you. And later on, as you serve in a full capacity, the challenges will be different. You'll be part of a team. The military, there's a thing called esprit de corps. And in the civilian world, it's hard to grasp what that means when you depend on the person next to you. When you're part of a team, that you serve beyond yourself and you serve others. So I want to commend you. Shortly, you'll be taking an oath of office that in part says, I will swear to defend this country against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And those are words right now to you. But as you go through your military career, those words will have real meaning to you. And as you step out of that career, those words will still stay with you. You'll still stay and remember, I will serve this country and defend it against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Those words will be your guide in your career and in your life. So I commend you both. Have fun in this career. It is good. It's enjoyable, but it's also a challenge. So well done. Well done.
Gentlemen, thank you both. It's your leadership, along with the leadership of Mr. Sprang, that makes today's important event possible, so thank you. And now for this morning's keynote speaker. I would like to introduce Mr. Matt McBride, a 2001 graduate of Mentor High School. Mr. McBride graduated from the United States Naval Academy in 2006 and was stationed in multiple locations, including Camp Leatherneck, Afghanistan, and Diego Garcia. Following his service in the Navy, Mr. McBride went on to complete his master's in business administration from Case Western Reserve University and currently is a director for Cleveland Clinic Innovations. Matt volunteers with both Hire Heroes USA and Ohio Guidestone to help mentor armed forces veterans and prepare them for transition back into the workforce. He and his wife Erin have 2 children, 3-year-old Timothy and 6-month-old Avery. Welcome back to Mentor High School, Mr. McBride.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Actually, that's a very tough act to follow. I'm very proud of what I've done, but I know it's a sliver of what a lot of the fellow veterans that like this in our local group have gone through, and I think it's an amazing thing. So I want to say thank you to Mentor for having me here, the veterans who we've just heard speak, and then the group of people who are really going to start understanding when we're talking about accountability, protecting the U.S. from foreign and domestic terror. This is going to mean something to you, because it's going to mean something to you, your family, and your, right now, your friends or your friends-to-be that you will make in a few short months. So this is the first time I've been back on site in Mentor for 17 years. And I'll tell you what, not because I had to give this speech today, but I had butterflies pulling into this parking lot like I had a math test that I did not study for. So I'll tell you, it doesn't go away. But it was definitely a lot of feelings came flooding back, and a lot of my 2001 graduates are actually teachers now who I think may have forced some of you to be here, so thank you for that. I love having a captive audience. So, what I'd like to say is ultimately you are, and I can't say it better than the gentleman already did, you are making an extremely mature decision at an extremely young age. When I was in your shoes at 17, it was between playing football at Bowling Green or going to the Naval Academy to play football. I didn't know anything from anything at that point, and went to the Naval Academy, saw the challenge that was ahead of me, and decided there was no other route. And that was 17 years ago. Best decision I ever made. I'd love to say that I was extremely calculated in coming to that, but I'd say it was more of a, oh, okay, Annapolis is on the water, Bowling Green's in a cornfield, maybe then. But, it turned out to be a lot more as day one when I showed up. It was, all of a sudden, I check in and they're saying, Mr. McBride, the first and last words out of your mouth from this point forward will be sir and ma'am. I say, yes, ma'am. No, Mr. McBride, the first and last words out of your mouth will be sir and ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And finally she says, ma'am, yes, ma'am? I said, yeah, ma'am, yes, ma'am, as my head's spinning. Tears are probably rolling down my eyes because my parents just left. But I do. I want to commend you because this is a mature decision that will shape the rest of your life. And you made it at a young age when it's easy to not make those tough decisions. So, as I mentioned, I wasn't quite sure what I was getting into. And I'll tell you, I was probably bitter once I showed up the summer of 2001, and all my friends are out. I'm getting letters, and this was still letter time. We didn't have email. I think a few of us had phones, but this was, hey, we were out at a party all night. We did this. And I'm thinking, I'm waking up when most of my friends are going to bed, and that to me was mind-blowing. I was thinking, I don't think I made the right decision. So I grew up a little bit, but I can pin it really back to one aha moment when I decided this is for me, this is why I did it. Every night at the Naval Academy or plebe year, you do what we call blue and gold. It's pretty much, it's a glorified, nice way of saying we're going to bring you out on the bulkhead on the wall for half an hour and yell at you. So that's how we got prepped for sleep. Well, so I had one company commander who had a book, and it's about that thick, and it was all Medal of Honor citations. So every night before we'd go to sleep, one of us would volunteer to read a Medal of Honor citation. And if you've ever read them, it is not conducive to a good night's sleep. You're hearing a Rambo story right before your head hits the pillow. So I remember hearing these for months and deciding at one point, slowly, my heroes are changing. My heroes when I was 16 and 17 looked a lot different than they do now at 18 and 19. And some of the actual Medal of Honor recipients would come in to the Naval Academy and talk to us. So it was making it a lot more real for me. And really it was through that I knew I'd made the right decision. I was accompanied with the right people or by the right people. So, and I am going to try to say a lot here in a very short period of time, so I'll try not to ramble. But this first part, I want to make sure that we touch on. So, James Stockdale, Admiral Stockdale, is a Naval Academy graduate, and actually the last Naval Academy graduate, I believe, to win the Medal of Honor. Well, if you do or don't know him, he was in captivity for 2,714 days. That's a lot of days. I mean, I was thinking about that. That would be, if you guys think of all that's happened between 4th grade and now. That's how long this guy was in prison. being tortured every day, living in just other than inhabitable environments. And when I first heard his story, I was amazed by it and just thought anything that I'm going through pales in comparison to what him and probably some of your peers went through as well. So that being said, I'm going to kind of go off script a little bit here, but I'm going to read the Medal of Honor citation. And when I do, I'm going to say attention to citation, and I'd like everyone to stand at attention on this stage. Attention to citation. James B. Stockdale, rank and organization, Rear Admiral, U.S. Navy, place and date, the Hanoi Hilton, North Vietnam, 4 September 1969. Citation, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty while senior naval officer in the prisoner of war camps of North Vietnam. Recognized by his captors as the leader of the prisoners of war resistance. Oh, hold on, sorry. This I don't have memorized, and I never claim to have Medal of Honor citations memorized. Oh boy. All right, well, I'm gonna have to skip over that, and I apologize, but let me get to the nitty gritty of what happened. So at ease, and I'll ad lib kind of what James Stockdale did. So he was ultimately, what the Vietnam captors were looking to do is break Americans down to a point where they would give away secrets and they would play into a propaganda that the North Vietnamese would use to ultimately try to intimidate the U.S. and have us believe that certain things were happening when they weren't. So knowing that if he disfigured himself on a normal basis, they wouldn't put him on camera, he did just that. And he did that to the point where he was close to death on several occasions because he would rather go through personal pain and anguish than give away what could be considered secrets or otherwise propaganda. And this was very important because he was the leader he was the highest ranking naval officer in this prisoner of war camp. So by leading by example in this case was massive for the troops' morale and really guidance to have some organization within a camp that otherwise was chaos and torture. So skipping around a little bit, one of the main things that he did when he was in the camp is help develop an innovative tap code. So this tap code was a series of 5x5 square, and they would all have letters. So, you know, if I was looking at this, I was thinking, well, 5 times 5, 25, okay, 26 letters in the alphabet. So C and K were interchangeable, just for your knowledge. So, and you would do a series of bumps and it would constitute a conversation. So, you know, a really interesting thing that I had read, and it kind of gave me chills reading it, was about soldiers who, as they were being ushered out to be tortured, because that's how it would happen, they'd get paraded out, many people have cited that the soldiers would tap, "We love you, we love you." And I just, you know, I thought that was a really, you know, the little things that in that sort of situation, when you're in 7 years of dark, depressing, like I said, other than inhabitable living conditions, you need those little things. So another thing, and most likely this is printed on the piece of paper that is probably sitting in my printer, but what I would urge you to do is take a look at the UCMJ General Order of Conduct for military personnel. So if you look at paragraphs, it's really not a paragraph, it's just 3 different sections. It talks about what to do if you do become a prisoner of war, and it's, you know, you give nothing but your name, social, and your branch of service, and then you can continue to push. So what James Stockdale was doing was utilizing, he knew that was his code of conduct, and he enforced it on others. Enforced it to a point where when he came back after 7 years of imprisonment, he actually placed charges on the other officers who were in the Hanoi Hilton with him, imprisoned, because they didn't follow the code of conduct. That's a little maybe overkill in my mind, but that was someone who took his code of conduct very seriously. So I don't want to spend the whole time talking about Stockdale, but one more point about him that I think is interesting is there was a book written called Good to Great. It was by a guy named Jim Collins. So in the book, he interviews James Stockdale and kind of says, how did you live? Like, how did you pull through every day? And through this conversation, they came up with what he refers to as the Stockdale paradox. And essentially, again, paraphrasing, it's the ability to have a positive mindset, but not an optimist to a point where you just believe everything's going to be okay. An optimist who also is not afraid to look at the brutal facts of their reality. So the people who would say, well, we're going to be home by Christmas, we're going to be home by Easter, he goes, those guys didn't make it. They weren't looking at what was ahead of them at the day-to-day. They just felt like everything was going to be okay regardless of their situation. And it wasn't. So, it was really interesting hearing James Stockdale talk through that, because you guys are going to be in some tough situations. It's going to happen, but you're going to figure out a way to get through it. And even if we want to say in short order, you're going to be going to boot camp, or maybe some of you already have. Looking back, it was July 27, 2001, I made friends for life that day. I can pin down 8 of my close buddies who I met that day, and because we were going through the same sort of stuff together, we formed a bond. Because you're going to be sad, you're going to be lonely, you're going to be confused, and guess what? So are they. So being able to commiserate together, I think, is just an amazing thing, and that's something that I have missed from the military when getting out, going into corporate or healthcare in my case. The team isn't quite the same. I mean, you are going through stuff together, but it's not the same as being torn away from your families and then taught all new rules and then taught new rules and told the old ones were wrong just to confuse you. So you're gonna be in a difficult position, but it's really about perspective and understanding that it is not going to be a fun few months, but you're going to get through it with other people. So. Enough with Stockdale, but ultimately, I wanted to take away a few lessons from him that we could apply to you. And I think one is going to be integrity and accountability. So how easy would it be for a senior naval officer in the middle of the jungles in Vietnam to tell maybe just a little bit more than his name and his social? Easy. And he probably doesn't get beaten. And that's how that would work. But he didn't. And nobody was watching. Well, I would argue that some were watching, and it was the people who he was leading. And that's a big deal. I mean, when you are a leader, people are looking up. So if you're letting a little squeal, then the people who report to you are probably going to be able to think it's okay to do the same thing. But he set that precedent. And I think, integrity and accountability are going to be beaten into you so hard. Those words might lose meaning because you hear them so much. So what I'd say is really think about what they mean to you and how you're going to embody them. Because if you just know the definition and don't practice, nobody cares. It's as good as not knowing. So what I think the important moral to take out of this integrity, accountability piece is, you see a lot of people who ultimately talk a good game, and it's, when in times of peace, it's easy to do all these things right. But when it hits the fan, that changes things. You need to know how to react, and your gut reaction should be in line with integrity and accountability. Not always the easy way, but the right way. Kind of getting past the brief history lesson, and maybe into more like what does the group care about? What do parents care about? What do the kids care about? Because I don't think I knew to ask what questions to ask to get the right answers that would mean anything to me at 17. So the first question that I probably asked myself is it okay to be scared? Because I played football here. Showing that I was scared wasn't a redeeming quality of a middle linebacker. So I didn't feel comfortable putting myself out there to say, yeah, I'm scared, I'm intimidated. But what I'd say is, if you're not, then something may be wrong with you, or maybe right with you. You may be going to a special operations team, something like that. But I just want to say that it is all right, and there's a lot of people who are going to be scared and may not know that it's okay. And that may take one of this team, these people here, to say it is okay. And you're really going to lean on each other. And I think that's on you. It's not going to happen by itself unless some proactive fellow or gal, decides to say, you need to talk to me. So be that shoulder to lean on, because I think it's going to be necessary, not only during boot camp, but throughout. You're going to be deploying to different places where you're going to start over every 3-4 years. All new friends, all new wardroom faces, locations, and you need to be open. You need to kind of, have that ability to not only lean on others, but be leaned on. So here's something that's near and dear to my heart, but I'm sure you're all going into this journey with something in mind about what you're going to be doing 2 to 3 years. Some may say, I'd like to fly planes. Some want to be on a ship. Some want to be on the ground. All of it. What I would say in my question there is, what if I don't get that position? And in a very harsh, matter-of-fact way, I'd say get over it. I'd say if you're going into this with one role in mind, then you're not going into it for the right reason. If you go in with an open mind of service, and that's the key, this is service, and kind of leave your ego behind, because we all have them, and I'll tell in a second where my story is, but it's a very hard thing to do. But I'd say don't set yourself up for failure. I mean, I remember a Air Force Academy class, I think the year before me, 1,000 people, they're graduating, and decide to cut the amount of pilots in half. You're like, well, hold on. I went to the Air Force Academy. I want to fly. Well, too bad. I mean, that's essentially what they're going to tell you. So I figure I'll soften the blow by telling you now. But so personally, and I'll tell you my story. Is I went to the Naval Academy, played football for 2 years, ended up having to have 4 reconstructive surgeries. And at the time, my plan was to go Marine Corps, going to be on the ground, be a young Marine officer, and I was told, you have a choice between 3 things. And I was like, oh, this is going to be good, okay. And so they said, supply logistics, cryptology, and intelligence. And at the time, I was thinking, okay, well, supply logistics, that's a good translation into the business world, which it has been, but I was not happy. It ended up being probably the greatest move of my career. So I would just say go into it with that open mind, and I think you'll be in a better position, not only for your time in the military, but after. I mean, people want to employ people who are open, adaptable, and flexible, so just start that now. And so finally, the group that we already kind of touched on earlier is the parents, because this isn't hard, or isn't easy, I'm sorry. I remember when I left that weekend of late July, that was the first time I'd ever been away from my parents for more than like 4 consecutive days. I don't know how they dealt with it. I don't know how they didn't send me to a camp or something during my childhood. So I have my 3-year-old over there. He'll definitely be going to camp during the summer. So, but it was heavy on me, and it was heavy on my parents. And I think, the one thing I would say is communication will be sparse, but it's not so much the frequency as what's being shared during some of those conversations. I'll never forget the first time we had to call our families. It was 6 weeks into boot camp, and there were still payphones. So we all had to walk up there with our quarters, and we had 45 seconds to talk. Over the last 6 weeks, I'd been seeing these tough guys and girls who couldn't be broken, just in a line going from here to the end of the stage, just a sobbing mess, talking, hi, Mom, hi, Dad, just bawling their eyes. I mean, it was really, looking back on it, it was sweet to see, because it did show, like I said, that's why everyone is going through that. There were very few people who were just like, hey, Mom, what's up? How's TV? Whatever. None of that. It was heartfelt. And it's funny, I was talking to Joe Glavin earlier about my mom and if she's coming. I said, no, she actually has an appointment with a slot machine in Vegas today that was planned before I had this date. So she wished me luck this morning, and I said, thanks, love you. But, know that communication is important. We know this in all parts of life. And I had on my sheet, it said, call your parents, capital underlined. So I mean it. And there was one friend at the academy who, when his mom couldn't get through to him, she'd call me. So I'd end up with my mom calling me, his mom calling me. So don't put anyone in that situation, because not everyone's going to be as nice. I'll close today just with, kind of wrapping everything up to say that you're about to enter a very noble profession. And I'm not saying this because my wife's in the crowd, but teaching being amongst this group. So you're entering a very noble profession and something that is to be respected. Again, the decision that you made is commendable and phenomenal. So what I'll say is be strong, stay safe, and as we say in the Navy, fair winds and following seas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. Now for the highlight of our event this morning. Time to introduce and learn a little more about today's honorees. We begin with the Army. Here representing the Army today is Sergeant Noah Signer.
Good morning. Private Philip Allman, would you please stand? Private Allman joined the Ohio Army National Guard on the 22nd of March, 2017 as a junior in high school. Soon after, he left for basic combat training, which he attended at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. He graduated on the 25th of August, 2017. Since then, he has been in the Ohio Army National Guard Recruit Sustainment Program, or RSP, which we train 1 weekend a month down at Camp Ravenna, Ohio here. Just like to say, over the past year, Private Allman has stood out amongst his peers as a leader. He has guided his fellow soldiers and those new recruits coming in, trained them, explained to them what he's learned, prepared them, and helped them be successful on their journey. He continually demonstrates mental and physical toughness, the mental and physical toughness it takes to be a soldier, and he is a shining example to those around him. He can often be found leading the formation, training other soldiers, really taking care of them, and that is something we've really come to appreciate from him. He truly displays the Army values: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And for that, I would like to say thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Allman for really instilling that in him. I know his past experience has really helped sharpen that, but we wouldn't be able to have accomplished that if it wasn't for you and your guidance in his life. So thank you. He will be attending AIT, which he will be a 42 Alpha, or Human Resource Specialist, where he will learn to continue to take care of soldiers and their needs and be there for him. He will be leaving on the 25th of May for advanced individual training. From there, upon graduation of that, he will be returning home, joining his unit 1 weekend a month, a couple weeks in the summer, and just being ready for any call that our nation has. He desires to attend Ohio State University, where he has earned the Ohio National Guard Scholarship, which pays 100% college tuition. You be seated. Next, would Kara McMinn please stand? Kira has earned a unique opportunity with the Army, for which we are very proud. Kira has been selected as one of only 44 students for the Reserve Officers Training Corps Early Commissioning Program, which is a full-ride scholarship to Valley Forge Military College. Valley Forge is one of the only 4 schools in the country that offer this accelerated ROTC program, where Kara will go to basic training this summer at Fort Knox right after graduation, and will enter Valley Forge Military College afterwards as a cadet in the Army ROTC program. Instead of the typical 4-year ROTC program, she will finish in 2 years with an associate's degree and at the same time become an officer in the Army, commissioning as a second lieutenant upon graduation. Kara will choose one of 5 major tracks at Valley Forge and will be required to continue her education to earn her bachelor's degree at the Army ROTC college or university across the nation. During the final or senior year of this program, at the follow-on university, lieutenants may compete for active duty, if eligible, the ROTC students in their cohort. When cadets receive their bachelor's degree, they will continue to serve in the National Guard, Reserve, or active duty in units across the country and around the world. Kara has already demonstrated she is a highly motivated student in life thus far, having already taken many college-level courses through the CCP program at Lakeland Community College. We are confident she has what it takes to succeed in this next challenge and chapter of life. I wish Kara the best of luck this summer in basic training and in the fall entering ROTC. Round of applause.
Thank you, Sergeant Signer. Here representing the Marines active duty is Sergeant Lee Workman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sergeant Workman, and I'm the local Marine Corps recruiter for the Mentor area. I'd like to start off by congratulating each and every one of these young men and women who made the unselfish decision to serve their country. It speaks volumes about your guys' character, and you should take pride in knowing that you'll be part of less than 1% of Americans currently serving in the armed forces. So for this school year, we had 2 students who enlisted into the military to become United States Marines. The first one we have here today is Cassandra Hyatt. Please stand up. Now, Ms. Hyatt spent many years growing up as a part of the Young Marines program. This program really laid the foundation for her drive to become a Marine. Cassie was one of the very first students I ever met when I got out here as a recruiter. She came right up to me in the lunchroom over there and told me she wanted to become a Marine. Like, she was already 100% knew what she wanted to do. However, for her, there were a few things that she needed to work on before she could enlist. But through her hard work and dedication, a few months later down the road, she was able to enlist on November 20th, 2017. Cassie has chosen to be a part of the communications field, which includes the design, installation, interconnection, and operation of communication networks and information systems. She'll be heading down to Parris Island, South Carolina here in a few short weeks on May 28th, 2018 to earn the title Marine. Let's give her a round of applause. And the other enlistee we have here today for the Marines is Marco Monaretto. Go ahead and stand up, bud. Now, Marco's enlistment was actually quite unique. Just like Cassie, he came up to me in the lunchroom and told me he wanted to be a Marine. However, he was quite stubborn and told me that he would join when he was ready. I don't get that a lot out here, but it's just the type of man he is. So as time went on, months went by, I got to the point where I just had to ask him, you know, when are you going to join, man? Like, you told me you want to do it. When are you going to pull the trigger? And he told me he would join in January, and we shook hands on it. So as a man of his word, Marco enlisted on January 10th, 2018, and he has chosen to become a combat engineer, which means he'll be dealing with the construction and repair of military structures, facilities, and bridges, and in placing and detonating explosives for construction and demolition projects. Marco will be heading down to Parris Island on September 24th after the summer to take on the challenge of becoming a Marine. Let's give him a round of applause, too.
Thank you, Sergeant Workman. Here representing the U.S. Navy active duty is Petty Officer Ryan Lease.
Hello, I Petty Officer First Class Ryan Lease, and I am the local Navy recruiter here. Today I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming our 6 future sailors. Every single student in this school is going to be facing a challenge. The seniors are going to be facing in just a couple short weeks. These 10 ladies and gentlemen were able to decide that they were going to meet that challenge head on with Navy service, and it is my distinct pleasure to welcome the 6 that have decided to do that through the United States Navy. First we have Dominic Neeby. Dominic Neeby is going to be an operations specialist. After 8 weeks of training at Recruit Training Command in Chicago, Illinois, he'll be heading across the street to work on learning how to operate weapon systems, guidance systems, and navigation systems on one of the 4 or 5 different platforms the Navy operates in the surface fleet. Next we have Kiernan Jakubka. Kiernan Jakubka is going to be working as an aviation machinist mate. She's going to be responsible for maintaining and servicing aircraft engines, either working on the aircraft directly or working on the engines while they are in service. She'll be doing her training down in Pensacola, Florida. Next is Marcus Kowalski. Future Sailor Kowalski is going to be also in Pensacola, Florida, where he's going to go through the rigors of training as an enlisted aviation aircrew specialist, where he will be learning how to either operate or to work on, work in the helicopters as an enlisted aircrew personnel. Next is Michael Merriman. Future Sailor Merriman is also going to be going down to Pensacola, Florida, to become an aviation machinist mate. He will be working on once again either the aircraft's engines, oil systems, power generation systems, that kind of thing. Next is Tristan Pastor. Future Sailor Pastor is getting ready to going ahead to take care of the challenge of the Navy's nuclear power program. The Navy's nuclear power program is by no means the most rigorous academic program we have in the enlisted military, where he will be learn how to qualify as a Navy nuclear reactor operator in just 2 years. And last we have Jacob Shivitz, who's also going to be going down to South Carolina to learn how to become a nuclear reactor operator, and he will be joining Future Sailor Pastor down there. I look forward to working with all 6 of these future sailors when we all meet up back in the fleet. Look forward to being able to mentor them and guide them until their shipping day out, and I've had the privilege of being able to work with them so far. I want to say thank you, special thank you to their families who have been supportive in this operation, because every single one of them needed their support in order to join. And I just want to say thank you to everybody up here that has decided that service is what they want to do after they graduate from high school, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Petty Officer Lease. One more round of applause for all of our students here today. Before we conclude, I just want to take a moment to say a few thank yous to our Mentor School Board members. So many members of the City of Mentor are here, including council members, fire department, police department, and other city officials. I'd like to say thank you to the teachers and to the students who came down here for the ceremony today. Also, thank you to VFW Post 9295 and American Legion Post 352 for having the color guard here today, and to the event's organizers, Mr. Glavin and Ms. Kirby. Finally, thank you to the Mentor High School Choir, who will conclude our ceremony this morning with God Bless America. I would invite you to please stand and join in.
Port, arm.
Thank you for attending. Have a great day.